Hey, thanks for stopping by at Twisted Art Designs. Today I am doing a really fun and different art journal page. It was inspired by my friend and a subscriber named Lindsay. So Lindsay, this is for you. She found some posts on Pinterest and wanted to know how to create it. Kind of researched it a little, couldn't find anything on it, and then ran it by me as a challenge for my Lori brain and how I come up with creative things. So what can I do to bring it to life? So I took that. She found another pin on Pinterest with someone with their blog, and this is the pin that she found. It was Gwen's Gems, Use a Stencil, and she does it, I believe, on a canvas. She uses air dry clay around the circles and collages within the circles, then paints the circles in gold. And so it is a little bit different, but I wanted to mention that that pin by Gwen LaFleur was what inspired this, and I just took it and made it into an actual art journal page. So this is for Lindsay. Lindsay, this is what I came up with, and I'll show you how I created it, so stay tuned. So what I'm starting with is a stencil with a big section, and then I'm also going to use this stencil with these big circles. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm putting this stencil down along the edge. I want this pattern along here and up here, and then the circles is going to be in the center. So I'm just taking this and putting it down, and I'm using my pencil to trace the sections and put it onto my page. See if you can see that. That's where those are going to be, and I'm going to do the same thing with it up here, and then I'm going to put my circles here, and I'm going to do it all in pencil first. So here's what it looks like with the two stencils penciled on to my pages. So that's how they're going to be, how the design is going to be. And what I'm going to do is put that aside, and next I'm going to take this is a scrap piece of watercolor paper, or you could even use cardstock. I don't really think it would matter. But I'm going to take this and I'm going to trace these shapes onto my piece of watercolor paper. So I think the easiest way to get the stencil lined up and the circles that I want to use as my decorative pieces, here's where the stencil went, and I had it halfway on the page. So I'm just taking my piece of cardstock or scrap paper and slipping it under there, and then marking the edges here that I just need to do these circles up to this edge. So I'm going to trace those circles. Hopefully this will make sense. And I'm not tracing the outer part of the stencil. All I'm doing is just the inner part of the circles. So see how it's just the circles. And I did a couple of those funky little shapes too, because those will be interesting to have on the page. So what I want to do now is inside each one of these little circles, I'm going to go ahead and do some interesting collage with little tidbits of pieces of paper, things that are textured, some napkins, different layers of things, pictures out of magazines, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I'm just going to tear and put them, and it doesn't matter if it goes outside of the circle. It's just basically to fill that circle with interesting little bits of things. And I'm going to use matte gel medium to apply everything down. When I get it done onto the sheet, then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. I pulled out a bunch of different things that I'm going to use to put into the circles, like material, some tissue paper, little bits of ephemera, scrapbook paper, patterned paper. These are things out of magazines, all kinds of little tidbits to fill these circles. And if you have something like this little piece of ephemera, what you can do is just take your stencil, and you know that this is one of the circles that I'm going to use, so I could take it and put it right over this, find where I want the image to show, and then just use my pencil to draw a circle and then trim that piece out. So that could be a base piece. So here's that little piece cut out, and here's where it goes on the page when you line it up with the pencil lines. Now I can leave it like that because it's kind of fun and interesting with just the letters. I think I may do that. Or you could add more to it and keep building it up. On that particular piece, I'm probably going to just leave it alone, or maybe do some distressing. Same with this paper. This is really interesting paper, and look how it looks through the circles. So I might find some sections on this and cut them out and just leave them as is. As I cut out things that go into the shapes, I'm marking them off on here because you want to make one for each circle, obviously. So I'm just putting an X and marking out which ones I've placed onto the page. And some of them I'm going to take and I'm going to do matte gel medium and put them into the circles right directly on this. They'll all come together in the end, as my mother would say. So I'm just using matte gel medium, and I'm going to just do some collaging into some of these spaces. Putting the pieces down. And then tearing them and layering them like that. So here are a couple of the circles that I've collaged and they've dried. So I'm going to go ahead and trim them out and put them into place. And some of them, because you've collaged over it, what you might have to do is put your stencil back down and with a pen or a pencil redraw your circle so that you can cut it out. As I'm cutting out these little pieces to put into place, I'm taking a little Ranger archival ink pad and I'm just going around the edges of each piece and distressing it so that there's going to be some continuity to it, that no matter what color is in the paper that I chose, that outside edge will all match. So I'm going around those edges, distressing them, and then I'm going to glue them each into place. Well, this stencil shape is really easy to cut out. I don't know what you would call that. Kind of a stencil. And it's a big stencil. It's a 12 by 12. I'm not sure what brand it was. But that shape is super easy to cut out. So I'm just tracing it onto some really pretty looking scrapbook papers. And then I'm taking my little archival ink, the little tiny ones, and I'm going around those edges and distressing and then gluing them into place, and it doesn't take much time to do, but it's coming together really nicely and it looks super cool so far. See, and then I just piece it and put it into place because there's the pencil mark of where it's going to go. So here's what it's starting to look like with all these little pieces filled in. And I like this red color. This was a pad of paper that are, I think, 8 by 8 inch, and it's by Ranger, and I just love, look at how pretty these papers are. It was in a pad. I really like those. But I'm going to keep going with this red because it is nice and bright, and I think for all the little tiny triangles and those odd shapes, I'm going to cut that out of this so that I have that color going throughout this layout. So I'm just putting the stencil down over my paper and finding a spot that I like on the pattern and then tracing out those shapes. So the little triangles and then those odd shapes. And I'm going to cut them out, distress them, and then glue them into place. Here's what it looks like with everything in their little spots. I like that I used 2 different types of stencils. This was the circle one, and this was the other one with that shape. I cut along this edge, so I cut out both edges. I cut out some of the cutouts randomly. So it shows the previous page, which luckily the blues go with blues that are in here, and it didn't damage my page. It did cut off a little bit of the word right here, but it's still fine, so that's okay. And now what I'm going to do next is, in the big spots, there's a couple of big places. In the big places, I'm going to paint those with black acrylic paint. In the skinny little spaces, On this stencil that I used, it looks like scribbled circles, so it's got these little crescent moon things. I'm going to use a Posca pen and I'm going to do those in a teal color. So I'm going to go in and just do those in teal and do these spots in black, and then I'll come and show you what it looks like. And here's what it looks like with the black in between and the blue around the circles. And now the last thing I'm going to do is take a gold colored fine point Sharpie, and I'm going to go around all of the circles and all of the designs with gold Sharpie. So here's what it looks like with the gold. I love it, love it, love it, love it. This was worth all the effort that it's taking. I think it's turning out really, really cool. So that's got gold paint in between. I started with a fine point Sharpie and it ran out of paint. So I switched over to a gold Posca with a 5M bullet tip, and it went a lot faster. It was a little bit different in color, so I kind of just blended them, and I like the two different colors of gold. It made it even more interesting. And now what I'm taking is a black Stabilo pencil, and not everywhere, but just in a couple of places around, since these circles are raised because it's paper that was either thick cardstocks or put down on that watercolor paper to collage it and cut it out. They're raised, so it makes it easy to go around some of these edges and blend it out, blend out that black Stabilo and make kind of a cast shadow. And look how pretty that looks with the black. I put it here and I put it here, putting it around some of the circles. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to add some more interest, like some Nuvo drops that are three-dimensional and raised, maybe glue on some gems, put some more fun and interesting things throughout this, and then I think I may even put a saying in here. And once I finish it up, I'll come back and show you the completed project. Here's my completed page, and I really had a blast doing this. I added a lot of little fine details. Some of the circles are collaged. They have material, there's napkins, there are little images like the birds, and there are postage stamps and rubber stamps. I stamped some images. I've used Nuvo drops. Those are the raised Nuvo drops. Some Spectrum Noir glitter ink. So some of the butterflies have glittery wings. So does the bee has glittery wings. Just all kinds of little details and mark making to just add another dimension and element to it. And then I added a saying, friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, "What, you too? I thought I was the only one," by C.S. Lewis. So I thought that was the perfect quote for this page. I loved it, I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed the idea and the concept of this art journal page, and that you give it a try too, because it was super fun. And thanks, Lindsay, for requesting it. So until next time, go make some art. Art soothes the heart. Find something new and different to do in your art journal. Thanks for stopping by.